All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? We have a lot to get through today. So today, Ryan and I are presenting on how to enroll, engage, retain, and fundraise with forms and workflows. And so a little bit about myself and Ryan. My name is Lauren Barth. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Finalsite. I've been here since 2009. I oversee our product engineering group, and I love building software and providing software solutions to problems our schools face. Ryan?
Yeah, Lauren. So this is my first time getting to present with Lauren, which is a lot of fun for me. I've been here at Finalsite going on my 5th year now, and Lauren being our Chief Product Officer. I have been in love with Finalsite's products from a client side even for going on 8+ years. So this means a lot for me to actually join up with Lauren finally on one of these webinars and get to kind of kick sand around the sandbox with her. I was once upon a time a digital director of design and marketing at a Catholic high school in Danbury, Connecticut. I was too a Finalsite client, and my role there was wearing many hats. I took care of everything from maintaining and managing the website to email marketing and communications, both internally and externally. I did all of our print material. My background was in graphic design, so I did everything from our 64+ page annual magazine to our annual fundraising pushes and our admissions yearly pushes. And so I've had a lot of fun, and over the time I got to really get a good sense of Finalsite software, how to leverage their tools and utilize them to meet the needs there at my school. And now I get the pleasure to work with about 150+ independent schools that are really looking to maximize and leverage these inbound marketing strategies, leverage Finalsite's tools within forms and workflows to kind of beef up their processes, but also save them some time and effort. And we all wear a lot of hats. So hopefully throughout this session today, we give you guys some kind of tools to take back and implement. Hopefully will save you guys some time and effort and allow you to be more efficient. A lot of familiar faces on the call here today. So you guys all probably know that I love all things Disney, Legos, roller coasters, iced coffee, and yes, sports. As Lauren mentioned, I have a fancy background on. We've got this beautiful brand new branding here at Finalsite, just kind of a refresh. And so it's nice to show the face. But if I didn't have my background on, you would see my Stranger Things Lego sets. You would see my Kobe Bryant Mamba Mentality book. You would see my Steamboat Willie Lego set. So just a little bit about me. I've been working here also remotely, like Lauren, for going on, it feels like over 12 months now. And it's been a lot of fun actually getting to see everybody in their at-home environment and learn a little bit more about my schools and my people and who they are. So looking forward to diving in today, guys, and we'll cover the agenda.
All right, so just a few bullets here on the agenda for today. So first, the Learn section, we're just going to get a little bit into what is email automation, when would I use it, and then cover what Finalsite tools I would need to be able to do some of the things we're going to talk about today. We'll have a quick brainstorming session where we'll cover a few of the most common scenarios we've come upon so far to use the email automation with. And then the best part will be demo time with Ryan, where he's going to jump into his site and really show us how to set some things up. And we'll save some time at the end for questions. So please feel free as we go to post questions in the chat, but we'll probably just reserve those for the end, and we'll go over as many as we can.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of time. We have about an hour. You know, we did jam pack a lot of different pieces to the funnel in this session. I feel like we could probably spend an hour on each one of these topics and enroll and retain and engage. So we'll move swiftly, but hopefully at a pace that allows you guys to really soak it in. And I think you mentioned too, Lauren, all of this will be recorded, slide decks will be sent out, and everybody will have access to these as well. And then we'll definitely save some time for some questions and diving in towards the end.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so first section, Learn. What is email automation and why use it? If you want to go to the next slide. So email automation is what it sounds like. It's a series of emails that are automatically sent out, and they're sent out based on a trigger. And the trigger can either be a time-based trigger or an action-based trigger. So immediately send out this email. 5 days later, send out this email. 5 days later, send out this email. An action type trigger is based on something the user does. The user filled out a form, the user opened an email or didn't open an email, the user clicked a link or didn't click a link. So those are the kinds of things that you can use, usually a combination of those, to map out what your email automation plan should look like. And so why are drip campaigns important? Why would you think about using email automation? One of the really nice benefits is this consistent nudge concept where, perhaps you have an inquiry form on your site, someone fills it out, they immediately get lots more information about your school, you send them back to your website so that they can learn more, but that's maybe where it ends. And maybe someone happens to see the email while they're standing online at the grocery store and they're like, oh, great, I want to check this out later, and they forget. So email automation is a way to keep your school in somebody's, at top of mind for a person where maybe they really intended to follow up, but they, sort of lost track of it. So that's definitely a great way to keep, your school on their mind. Similarly, no one getting lost. It's not a situation where I filled out a form to download a view book. I got the view book, and then that was the end of the road, and no one's talked to me for a month. It's making sure that you're sort of continuously interacting with people who indicated some level of interest in something.
And also too, Lauren, right? Like we're always so hyper focused on doing that for our prospects in our admissions process, and then we get them to enroll, and we get them to engage and enroll. And sometimes we fall off a cliff with those constant nudges and that same sort of tactic and approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And then, of course, saving time. I set up the series. There's that initial investment of setting up the series of emails. There's the initial investment of setting up the workflow itself. But then once it's set up, I, activate it and go. The workflows are something that can be used from year over year. You could make minor adjustments, but once you do put that work in and set them up, you can continue to use them. So I think this gives you a really great opportunity to think about email communication in a more strategic way. You don't want to simply automate the things that you do manually today. Again, taking the inquiry scenario, someone inquires, maybe they get a follow-up email with tons of information in it that covers every possible question someone might have. And what you really want to be thinking about here is, I don't have just one chance to send an email. Now I can have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 emails that go out over time. And you really want to be thinking about, what is your goal? Why do I have an inquiry form on my website? Why do I have a download a view book form on my website? Because I want that person to apply. And I have to realize that you're going to have those slam dunk people who go right to your website, they love your school, they know your school, they're going to apply. Great. It's the other people who are sort of thinking about it, they're just exploring, they're not sure if they want to send their child to an independent school or which one. And so those are the people that you really want to engage with over time. And one thing that you might look at is, if I'm sending this one reply with lots of information, is all of that information relevant to everyone who's going to get it? If I can find out a little bit of information about the user, I have a first grader versus a ninth grader, there's going to be different kinds of content that's going to move me and get me to go, further into the funnel. And so those are the kinds of things that you want to start to think about. One of the things, again, that we talk about with an inquiry form is you want to really keep it simple, first name, last name, email, because you want obviously that email address, but include a qualifying question that's strategic. What grade is your child going into, or what is their main interest at school, or something like that you will be able to use as we get into this further, to branch the workflow to provide more relevant content to the person who's actually submitting that inquiry form. And then also think about, as a parent, we all get emails from schools, and a lot of them can be miles and miles long that I read on my phone. And again, if you can give more bite-sized pieces of information, knowing that in another week, they'll get another one. In another week, they'll get another one. You don't have to go all in that one email and give every possible piece of information.
Yeah, I think this picture here on the right-hand side is a little bit more of selling t-shirts. We know that our admissions cycle and in the funnel there is a little bit longer than an hour and a day delay. And so allowing to effectively sort of still build that longevity of drips, instead of, as Lauren mentioned, putting all of our eggs in one basket and betting that they're gonna sift through that one email that's sitting in their inbox, and they might have multiple specific pieces of that email that we can extract and strategically target them better and tailor them a little bit more to be the goal of what we're looking to do, rather than throw all these goals at them in one email and kind of let them sort of pick and choose. So again, targeted, and it helps us strategize a little bit more what our end goal is eventually going to be as well.
Yep. And so as Ryan mentioned, and for any of you who know him, you know he loves Disney. And so he always finds a way to put Disney images in his slides. And this one is really, I think, applicable to the situation. I think the other thing that is different, not only is your email strategy different, but your communication is now revolving around the user and not the admin. So I'm not saying, oh, let me dump a list of all the people who have inquired in the last 3 months and send them an email about something. When some of those people inquired 3 months ago and some of them inquired 3 days ago, and they're at a totally different place in the process. So what this does is it really shifts the focus to work around the user. The user submitted the form, immediately they get an email. I give them several days to open that email, and then 5 days later, I send another email. Oh, the user didn't open that email. Well, I'm going to try something different. And so again, it really centers on the user. Your goal here is really to try to create personalized content that's relevant to the user. And that's where using personalization features with first name and so on in the subject line and in the email body is helpful. But then also trying to create relevant content, maybe based on information you've gathered about them, based on links they've clicked in the emails that you've sent previously, or based on what they've answered in a form.
And Lauren, like the going back to that admission cycle, it's long, and especially in a year like we just had this past year, a lot of parents were looking elsewhere for education in a pinch, and it didn't fall in line with our normal admissions push and cycle of our typical inquiry form. And so we might have these prospective families filling out these inquiry forms or telling us their interests at various parts of the year. And what's really neat about that, and what's really neat, and we'll get into it, which is messages and dynamic content, is that we've got this email that's teed up to say, if you tell us that you're interested in athletics, then come check out a game. And in that email, we're going to show you the upcoming games to check out. And we're also going to give you some recent athletic accolades and news stories about our student athletes, right? But we know that if we created that one email and we put all of that content in there, well, that schedule is static, right? That news is static. But if we dynamically pump it in, no matter when they fill out this interest form and they tell us that they're interested in athletics, we have that email waiting to tee up to them that will automatically dynamically morph and show them the next 14 days of athletic events that they can come to, and show them the most recent stories, depending on whether they filled out and selected that athletic form in March or October, right? And so again, we're sitting here waiting for them this entire time, not really knowing if they're ready, but when they're ready, we will know that they're ready and we'll be there for them.
So what Finalsite modules are required for what Ryan's going to dig into and show you later? So Finalsite's messages module is our bulk email tool. It can also be used to send notifications to the app if that's something that your school is using. So you'll use that same familiar interface to create templates and emails for workflows. Those are sectioned off in a separate area and have separate permissions. So if you want to have only a few people at your school have access to that, you're able to limit that. The new forms module, one of the things that this new forms module was launched in December, and we have a connection now with new forms module and workflows, and that really opens up a whole bunch of new scenarios that you can use workflows for. So anyone who is using Forms Manager, you do need to start using new forms if you want to connect it to workflows. It is fine and possible to use Forms Manager and new forms side by side. So if you want to get started and give it a try, you're absolutely able to do that. And then the third module, of course, is workflows. And that's where you create all of this automation, these pathways, where you're scheduling sends of emails and branching and doing all these things that we'll get into shortly.
Yeah, that's where we're going to dive in. We'll have some fun with building that out. I think everybody is familiar here with, maybe how to create some good looking emails and how to create an online form. But this is really where the beauty of the session, we'll dive into some of the weeds of building out those workflows and how they're connected to these messages and forms modules.
And so just to jump into a little bit of terminology, just so that we're being clear about what we're talking about, we will talk a lot about an entry trigger. And so that is the event that kicks off your workflow, that gets a person to start receiving emails in your workflow. That can be a manual upload. So I have a list of people who signed up for an open house. I want to put them in an automated workflow, so I upload that list. It can be a dynamic list. So I'm doing an annual fund campaign, and I have a dynamic list of parents from Constituent Manager that I want to put through this workflow. So that's another way. And then the third now is submitting a form, so that download a view book or completing an inquiry form in Finalsite is something that can automatically trigger entry into a workflow. Constituent, most of you are probably familiar with Constituent Manager module. A constituent is a person in your community that's in that module. And one of the things that we will look at is when the form is an entry trigger, the next step is immediately to create a person. Because a lot of times when someone's filling out a form, they're someone who's not currently in your community when we're talking about prospects for admissions specifically. So we want to create that person in Constituent Manager so that we can then send that person emails and have all of the tracking and things in place like we do for regular parents, students, faculty.
And Lauren, right, if that constituent lives already in our database, it will crawl, find that user and say, okay, we've connected that user's name, email address, and we've identified that constituent.
Yes. Yes, no, and that's helpful if you're creating a workflow that's really geared towards current parents and you don't want to create duplicate records, or you don't want to put the form behind a login. That can be useful. Yes, thank you, Ryan. And then branching. This is something again Ryan will get into, but this is where there's some kind of decision tree, a yes, no. Did the person answer? Did the person open the email? Yes or no? Did the person click a link? Yes or no? And we can also use this with answers in the form itself. So did the person answer lower school or middle school to this question? And you can branch based on that as well. And then a goal is something that you can set. My goal for the workflow is for the user to complete this form or to become a member of the applied parents of applied students group or something like that. So these are all different pieces that we'll be taking a look at in the workflows module.
I see a couple people did ping the chat that they did have to run. We will record all of this. We will send you the entire recording as well as the entire slide deck.
So brainstorming time, we'll just jump into some scenarios. One of the things that's always a fun experience from my perspective on the product side of things is, we always have some clear ideas of how things will be used in the software, and, schools always find new and exciting and interesting ways to do things. And we're like, oh, wow, that's a great idea that we're gonna communicate to other schools.
I think I was one of those, right, Lauren?
Yes, no, absolutely. And the parent volunteering one is one that's come up quite a lot. Schools are like, we are always trying to get parents to volunteer, and we send out emails, and how can we think about this differently? And so again, I think this is a good example of what is your strategy here. Do you create a form on your website that allows someone to indicate some level of interest in volunteering? I would be interested in outdoor activities or activities with students, or I want to volunteer for the annual auction or something like that. And do you kick off a workflow based on submissions to that form? And instead of assuming that, I'm going to send, again, this one email with all 45 opportunities to volunteer on it, can I try to break that up into something more readable that someone's going to engage with more effectively, and then push them to volunteer? And again, it's something over time. Maybe I get one email and I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that. I keep needing to do that. But again, if you continuously kind of nudge somebody in a non-annoying way, can you get, more traction that way?
I think a lot of times too with this parent volunteering is that we sometimes, obviously there's a lot of, when we think about give back, we always focus on the monetary value, but having worked in the school system and how far just hands on deck with a parent association or parents helping out, whether it be at games or, fundraising events, it's an extremely important and vital piece to it, right? And it's part of the community, right? And so this is, it plays very much into the engage, the retain, and then also creating that lifelong advocate, but also setting expectations to say, if you can't give monetarily, here's awesome ways to get involved and volunteer, right?
So again, this example we covered quite a bit already. Inquiry to applicant. There's a number of different ones that you could think about in the admissions, case. Again, downloading a view book or something that's even maybe a pre-inquiry type interaction. But then even once you have students who have been accepted, you want to drive those to be students who are enrolled. And so is there something more that you can be doing? If a student has been accepted at 4 or 5 different schools, you want them to choose your school, and how do you continuously interact with them to drive them to that enrolled status? Event promotion is another thing. That's something that we do here at Finalsite when we have a webinar. We send out emails sort of a few weeks before, 1 week before, 1 day before, something in that vicinity. And how do you think about that at your school? You have, a fall fair that you want all of the students and parents at your school to attend and buy tickets. And yes, you can send that one-time email, or, once every week or two, I'll send out an email. But could it be more effective if you look at it differently and really have a campaign to promote the event where you share something, photo and something fun that happened last year, and sort of continuously remind people that, like, this is fun, the kids love it, it's a great fundraising event for our school, here are the things that we can do with that money, or whatever. Again, instead of sort of the dry invitation, how do you think about it differently and really market that event?
I can't tell you how obsessed folks were with those photos of the last year's event, who was in it, the group shots, who made the reel, the gallery reel. It was a big deal.
And again, annual funds. So here's where we really are looking at the form submission being a goal of the workflow. So I might be targeting all parents, or maybe I've created different groups of parents based on their level of donation from the previous year. And I'm trying to, over time, again, remind them, here are the things that your donation made possible last year, sort of thing. And really drive them towards, please donate to the annual fund. And then once they complete that form, they'll have met the goal, and they won't continue to receive further emails about that. And then this was another interesting one. You want to always be creating lifelong donors. So someone does donate to the annual fund, they get that immediate thank you so much. But do you think of something that's a longer lasting campaign to really prime them up to give again next year? Again, here are the new couple of the new faculty members we were able to add. Here are the new computers we were able to add in the computer lab. Here are the new art classes we've added, all thanks to your donations. And is that something that keeps people, maybe it's a longer lifespan, once a month or something, they get an email to kind of remind them, and then they're all queued up and ready to feel good about their donation and are ready to give again in the next cycle.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, well, we're about halfway in, and so we're going to turn over to demo time, and I will do some clicking around and diving into the product a little bit. So get the popcorn ready, and we'll start, and I will take you through sort of the sections that we've broken this session into, which is an enroll, engage, retain, and then fundraise. As I mentioned, I feel like we could sit down and do a whole session on each one of these sections, but I really wanted to focus on the beauty between the forms connector and the workflows module and what our capabilities are. And so what I'll do is I'll take you guys through a couple of bite-sized drips. And I think this is really important. When Lauren and I were gearing up for this webinar, I think, one thing we discussed was sometimes being overwhelmed by what an automation and a drip campaign can do for us. And we overcomplicate the amount of drips and the amount of content that lives. And we overthink what our entry and trigger goal is. And sometimes creating these shorter, targeted, and tailored entry and end goals is going to be more effective for us. And thinking about how we move folks along this sort of enroll stage in bite-sized drips. That's not one large one from, inquiry download all the way to application. There's a few small drips in between those that help nudge these users along. So this first one here is, your very early on inquiry light form, maybe even just a view book download. And really all we want to hit them with is a thank you for your submission, and then get them to schedule a tour and maybe chat with us, right? Get us to get in touch with the admissions team, or at least come on campus and tour. So here is a quick little example of an email that I put together. That was, that first initial email, which is, thank you for your download. We honor the handshake. We simply get them that content piece offer that we promised them. And then, we're going to slowly nudge them to get them to schedule a meeting. And with this email, I'm going to sort of show a little bit more face, obviously offer up that link to that online form for them to schedule that meeting, book their meeting. And that's going to be my end goal. But really here, the goal is to give a warm welcome to the team and make it easy and welcoming for them to connect, and obviously use personalization within all of our emails here. So then after we've teed up our content, we've got these emails ready to go, here's where the fun part happens, and this is where the automation and the build out of the drip happens. So I'll open up our workflows module here, and I'll take you guys through this first view book download, and the goal being we want to get them to a one-to-one meeting. So you can see here, I've got a couple things. I've got an entry trigger point, which is my view book download. So as soon as they fill out that form and they hit download, they're going to get that first email, right? That's going to say, thank you for your download. Here's your view book. Very short, very sweet. We're just getting them the content that they need. I'm going to then add a branch that says, if that user selected that link, which is download the view book, I'm going to send them that next call to action to say, hey, schedule your one-to-one personal virtual tour or virtual meeting with us today. If they did not click on that view book link, I'm going to just nudge them again and say, hey guys, don't forget, you downloaded the view book, click here to access it, right? So I can continuously nudge them down this path. But you can see it's a very short drip. And my end goal with this is just to get them from that view book and that content offer to get in touch with us, to chat with us. And you can see here that I have an end goal, and that end goal is my one-to-one virtual visit form. So what this workflow in total tells me is that they come through via that content offer and that download. And my end goal is to quickly get them in touch and get that one-on-one or tour visit with them.
And I think before you move on, just quickly, one of the things to sort of focus on there as well is that just because you can send all of these different emails and have all of these different branches, you shouldn't feel like you have to create something that's overly complex for your situation. Like, again, keeping in mind, what is the goal of that workflow like Ryan did? It really comes down to, did they click the link to download the view book or did they not? And that's sort of as simple as it needs to be. So don't feel compelled just because you can add lots of branches to do that, unless it really makes sense for your goal.
Yep. And we'll get into like something that's a little bit more nimble, where like if you did need to get in and add a branch or add a step or add an email within that campaign, you can. But really the beauty here is that end goal and allowing us to know that we really want those folks to get into that meeting. And anybody else that still is living and breathing in this workflow that has not completed that next step, we're going to find ways to nudge them over to that next call to action that we need them to complete. So this next one here is a meeting to full application. So we got them to meet with us. They filled out, they said, okay, we're ready to meet. And I'm just going to drip to them a couple of things like, hey, thanks for scheduling your meeting. Can't wait to meet with you. Tell us what you're interested in, right? Getting to know them even prior to them coming on campus or discussing with your admissions team their wants and needs. And teeing up some emails that are tailored to them based off of what their interests are. And what this also does for our admissions teams is it's starting to also vet out these users, right? And find right fit candidates as well. So it's a win-win. It's a tailored, personalized approach to those end users. But for your admissions team and for your admins, you're really starting to get a clearer picture of your candidate pool, right? And the look and feel of that new prospect pool and how many folks are interested in athletic versus arts versus student life versus academics. And then, you know, our end goal here, again, we want to continue to hit over the head with, well, there's an end goal to this drip, and that is going to be to complete the full application. So we're going from meeting them one-on-one, getting to know them a little bit, and we're going to get them to fill out our full application form. So now we move into actually building out the drip campaign, and we've built some of these emails, and now we're just going to trigger off some of these to go to these users. This one's really fun. Again, my entry point here is that virtual meeting, right? That was the end goal of my last workflow. And now I've got a new starting point, and that is move them from my virtual one-on-one meeting and get them to fill out that full application form. So they've filled out that one-to-one visit. I am going to send them immediately, thanks so much, looking forward to meeting with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about Lauren's interests. In that email, I have broken out a number of selections that they can choose from. And because within that email, they selected that their interests were athletics, I am going to then tee up this email that says, hey, come experience our stable, come to an athletics event, right? And this email is going to include a dynamic calendar of our upcoming events and dynamic news of our recent athletic news. On the contrary, we're going to have a no branch, and it's going to say not athletics, but if they actually selected fine arts, well, then we're going to tee up a fine arts email similar to that athletics one, but this one's going to be a little bit more tailored to our art program. Come experience the bright lights. You know, maybe it has our fine arts or play schedule. Maybe it's got some, previous plays that we've done, things like that. And then lastly, I also added a drip here for maybe if they selected student life and we wanted to send them something that's a little bit more tailored to our clubs and activities and the boarding life at school or something like that. It looks very complicated, but when we zoom out, it really is a one-step trigger to say, what are your interests? Fill that out. And once you do, we're going to send you just your right fit email. And at the end of the day, if we really want to take it one step further and say, maybe you selected a wrong interest, right? If we're finding that they're still not opening that email after they selected their interest and they still have not completed that application form, let's send them a, hey, pick a different interest. Do you have a different interest? Choose a different one, and then we'll tee up these right emails to you, right? And then again, we have our end goal, which is to complete our application. And this is a really fun end goal, especially when we get tied into constituent data, because yes, we can certainly tie this to a form submission. If you use Finalsite Forms to have your full application form within there, then certainly we can set that as the goal. But this is also done via an integration that will move those folks once they completed that application to a status that moves them from an inquired status to an applied status. And so we can actually set this goal based off of their constituent movement, not just the form that they completed. And that is going to tell us that they are fully now enrolled. They've completed this workflow, and we're going to remove them. So those were a couple, admissions, top funnel type emails. Let's talk about ways to engage with your community. I think this is one of those really falling off points. We focus so much on automation and drip campaigns and prospecting and our email marketing strategies. And once they become a parent or a student and they become a seat at our school, there's a lot of really neat, fun, automated processes. And we also have a lot of information to get these parents, right? And so rather than throwing all the eggs in the egg basket at them in one long chunked in email that says, here's how to access all of your information, here's how to get your grades, here's how to download the view book, extracting those and bite-sizing those to them do one of two things. They allow the user to focus more on those individual, topics that they need to absorb, but also it allows you to kind of take that excitement and that ramp up and that welcome to our community and kind of drag it out a little bit longer, right? Keep that momentum and keep that excitement going for those users with those drips over time. And there's something about that too that isn't just an immediate, hey, thanks for your application. We'll get in touch with you when we're ready, right? We want to continue to engage with that user over time. So this welcome new parents emails or drip campaign is a lot of fun. I thought about a couple really fun ones, just your warm welcome. We might want to send them some FAQs, handbooks, resources. Learn the lingo. Every school's got a really unique, story to tell and environment on campus. And there's always spots on campus or some type of lingo that you want to kind of get them in. And again, we can probably think about these for students as well. And then a gentle reminder just to reiterate where they can find all of their information and where they can comfortably get all their information. So I've got this first email here that makes it really exciting for them. It's a welcome email. It maybe points them to a couple areas that they should check out: their parent portal, their mobile app, maybe how to find us on social media if they are not already following us, and then how to make sure they subscribe to our weekly newsletter for updates. FAQs, right? These are really important. Get their questions asked. And again, not putting all of our content directly within the email itself. Building a beautiful FAQ new parent page that we can continuously update, add to, and that is also subconsciously forcing those parents to get into the habit of going to the website, finding what they need to find in their portal. Digital handbook. This is a fun one. We got a lot of schools that are rolling out digital handbooks in this day and age, and using some tools to create an easy to update, ever-growing handbook. Learn the lingo. This was a fun one. I'll open it up and kind of show you what I did here. So learn the lingo, FSPA, this is our parent association. It's a vital part of our parent community. Help volunteer at events and plan ways to improve school-to-home communication. The Valley, this is our main athletic field, houses all of our multi-purpose turf stadium. Most of the athletic events are played on this field. Find food at the concession stand, so on and so forth. The Lot, this is where main pickup and drop off is located. You can access here from Southern Road. Most parents love to congregate in the common grounds while waiting for practice to end. Mustang Times, this is our student ran newspaper, right? So again, keeping that really nice and exciting, inviting, warm welcome, part of the community going and rolling for these new parents. And again, not just throwing this in one email that we send to all the new parents on day one, right? Having these trickle over time. And then certainly lost and unopened. Listen, we want to get out in front of these as soon as possible. I've been on that side of the coin where you're answering all the phone calls from the parents that, aren't receiving the weekly newsletter or they can't find the information where they have it. And then also, there are plenty of parents that don't call us up and that will wait a year before they say like, hey, I haven't had 95% of, the communication sent to me. Well, let's get out in front of that and find those end users now. And that's going to help us with our retention, right? Our engagement and our retention long-term. And automation and these drip campaigns will allow us to really drill down and find those users that are struggling to adopt early on. So let's go into building the drip of that new parent workflow. We've teed up, we've created these fun emails, and you can see this is a little bit different than our admissions. There's really not an end goal here, right? Like they're a parent. My goal here is to just drip content over time that is really fun for them to engage with, important information to engage with, but not just bombarding them with this, this 64 plus page PDF that they have to comb through day one, right? Setting it to kind of drip to them over time slowly. So you've got this new parent welcome, just a, hey, welcome, here's a few major key areas to hit. That's our first one. And if they open that new parent email, right, just because they opened it, I'm going to send them, hey, I'm going to wait 3 days and send them, here's some new parent frequently asked questions. And on the contrary, if they did not open that new parent welcome. It's okay, I'm gonna hit them again. I'm just gonna slowly hit them in a week's time with the new parent welcome again, right? Maybe they were in the line of the grocery store when we hit them with that new parent welcome and they missed it. And they're gonna re-get that and they're gonna get back into our drip campaign from there. Going back here, you can see here, now we're starting on a very linear path and I'm gonna wait 3 days and I'm going to send this user a new parent handbook. This is going to be our digital version of our handbook. Maybe they clicked and they viewed that handbook and now I'm gonna get them that learn the lingo email. So again, we're slowly over time, over weeks and months here, still having them engage with us, maybe over the summer months, getting ready, gearing up for that new year. And then lastly,
go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna say one thing too to mention here as well is you'll see the area stats and activity to the right. Those are usually underwhelming on our demo sites. But that's another thing too, that if you think about looking at how successful was this campaign, how much are people engaging with these messages? And particularly for something like this, like a welcome email series, you know, is there one that like sort of nobody cared, nobody opened it, no one clicked anything? And so maybe you take that out for next year. Whereas others that were very popular and people clicked the links and opened them, you know, what did you do in the subject line? What was the content like? Can you provide more of that kind of thing? So you also want to be keeping an eye on the stats area as well.
Absolutely, Lauren. And like, I think that is it's a really key piece to ongoing management of these campaigns long-term, you know, definitely heavy lifting up front year one. And then year over year, you're going to be massaging, tweaking based off of what worked, what didn't work, right? And then also too, you know, especially with this new parent welcome, there might be in a pinch an email that you need to get out to these new parents. And because, you know, this is still not, there's no end goal, we can always add in a drip here that says, well, we just announced a new parent, you know, all school meeting that you have to attend to. And we might need to either send that off as a one-off, or if we have some time, we can add it here to this drip at any point in time. And so we can still add and manipulate these drip campaigns on the go, as well as look at them year over year and see how they work. Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite ones that I built out. And I know we're about 15 minutes out, and I think we'll be good for time here, Lauren. I've got this one, and then our fundraising one, and then we'll open it up to some questions. But I think this is something that everyone can relate, which is, you know, in the role of communications, we do a lot to try to make this information accessible for our parents, our students, our faculty, our community. And we probably have a myriad of different solutions for our users. And I feel like in regards to the way that they can absorb their information and get their information. And as we turn into this new sort of day and age where everybody's lives are a little bit more hectic than others, you know, day to day, hour to hour, it's all over the place. And so the way that folks are absorbing and getting their information really varies, right? It can vary parent to parent. Time of day, device, location of where that information is. And so a couple things that we might offer for our parents to retain them is an app, right? Maybe we have an app that they can easily open up. It's got all of our calendars on it. It's got all of your directories in it, right? It's a really nice in your pocket on the go. We also probably send out a weekly newsletter to all of our parents and students and faculty and staff, right? That's another area that we send out all this information that they can absorb. And then we probably have a portal that they can access that has all their information on it as well, right? So we've got all these areas where these folks can access, but they might not know what they don't know. And I would like to get out in front of that and play matchmaker for them and ask them, hey, how do you want to find out your information? You tell us, and we'll tell you where to find and what is going to be the best source for your information. We've got a lot of options for you here. Let's find your right fit. And really focusing on getting some of these personas. So I've created this form through our new forms manager that has a few options for them to fill out. We were doing so good, Lauren. I didn't see how.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, we'll get there. Okay, so we've got this form here that is asking our parents, how would you like to receive your updates? Right, really short and sweet and simple. And I'm going to ask them, how would you like to receive these updates? Immediately? Do you need information as it happens on the go? Would you like a weekly digest that you can just get sent to you? Or, hey, I really don't know. Is there just a place where I can find these updates? And let these parents fill this out, send them to you, submit their answer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually tee up a few emails based off of what they selected to say, hey, we've matched. You've matched with the app. Or you've matched with our parent portal. Here's how to access it, right? Or you've matched with our weekly newsletter. Here's how to make sure that your email is correct and that you subscribe today. So now when we go in and we actually build out this drip campaign, it's a really straight, and this is going to be a fun one to show, Lauren, in regards to form selections within the drips. So we've got our entry trigger, which is our form. How would you like to receive your updates? It's going to create that constituent. Obviously, they're going to be a parent constituent in our database, so it'll crawl them, match their first name and their email addresses. And then it's going to say, I'm going to create a branch. And I'm going to branch this workflow if a form submission matches immediately. I need information as it happens on the go. And if that is the answer they selected, I'm going to send them that email that says, hey, you've matched with the app. On the contrary, in this no branch, I'm going to say, well, this one's going to be if they selected a weekly digest, and that is going to be that email that says you've matched with our weekly newsletter. And then lastly, the branch that gets sent to them for where can I find these updates? Hey, you've matched with the parent portal. And then lastly, if still out of all of those, they have not opened or clicked, we are going to send them just that all of your ways to stay informed email that has the app, the portal, the newsletter, information all in it. Really fun. So I think this is one piece that we really should focus a little bit more on, and that these drip campaigns allow us to do, which is really start to understand the personas of some of these parents. And that in turn is going to help us retain them better, right? Understand their needs, their wants, their needs, and really create that personalized parent experience for them, knowing that it's not one size fits all. So I've got a couple fun names: Pocket Paul, Weekly Wanda for our weekly newsletter, and Bookmark Betty. Lastly, we'll jump into this fundraising piece and utilizing the forms connector with our email drip campaigns. This is definitely a really big benefit because we're really able to capture those folks that have given, that we know that have given. And so within this, let's call it 24-hour giving campaign, we all are probably familiar with a Giving Tuesday campaign, but maybe it's a 24-hour push or a give, and we're rolling this campaign out, and we want to send them a couple emails about why give, right? And we want to give them just an overview of different ways that their gift makes an impact. We want to send them maybe immediately when they do make their gift, say thank you. And I think something to think about here in an odd way almost is that with some of these drip campaigns, Lauren, right? Like in theory, we are creating some emails that we hope users never get, right? Like we hope that everyone gets this first give email and they give. But we need to also be realistic and understand that we need to create some more value add type emails that are going to help nudge those users that have not given without disrupting those users that have given, right? And again, our typical last chance, place urgency, and kind of last minute nudge. So I created this little first email that says join the movement. It's got some movement in it. It's got a countdown ticker in it. And it just really highlights the different areas that gifts can make a difference, right? And all of our donors have different, passions to give to as well. And so really highlighting the different facets in the areas. And again, as Lauren mentioned, maybe what last year's gifts went to and highlighting those and what they made it. I think showing those in more light. I've had some schools build out really awesome catalogs that are digital that can show you, this gift amount can give to a rack of balls for the basketball team. And this gift amount can, provide standing trays for the musicians at concerts, things like that, right? And really starting to allow these users to picture where their gift was going a little bit more. And this personalization allows us to do that a little bit more. Again, really quick thank you. There's my Disney reference in there, Agnes from Despicable Me. And we just want to get this email directly to them. And again, it will be personalized. And also, this really is going to be the form submission. So within this personalization email, you can also include the donation amount to say, thank you, Lauren, for your gift of X amount, right? And we are going to then mark that user as complete. They're exiting the campaign. They do not receive any of these additional emails that we're going to tee up. I created a fun little email that might be a value add, special message from our president, short and sweet value add. And then we really go into building out the drip campaign for this 24-hour Giving Tuesday campaign. So again, our end goal here is going to be that form submission that they clicked and gave. And so we are going to send that first email message, join the movement. If they open that email, we are then going to open and click that email. We are going to send them that immediately thank you for your gift email, right? And then so on and so forth. If they didn't, and we want to start sending them some more of those value adds, well, then we're going to send them maybe that message from our president, right? That video content, more of that fluff or that value add, so on and so forth. All the way until we get them to eventually complete that form, submit that gift. All right, so we've got about 6 minutes left here, and we covered a lot of topics. I see you have a couple questions here in the Q&A.
Yep, there's a few in Q&A and a few in the chat. The chat ones we can sort of consolidate a little bit. They're both around constituent manager and workflows and how that works together. So basically, and if you're using another SIS, the flow of data in Finalsite is always the SIS data comes into constituent manager. So in this case, managing inquiry forms and view book campaigns and things like that in Finalsite, you have that really top of the funnel interaction that you might get more traction of in Finalsite because of the beautiful emails you can create and all the stats that we have and so on and so forth. You are able to export users who have submitted a form, so you could export and import. It's not automated, so there's that option. We also put these users in sort of an underwater container within Constituent Manager. So they are segregated. They're not going and getting mixed up with your existing parents and students or anything like that. So they are in a separate forms users area.
Yeah, Lauren, the other thing too is a lot of our schools use the power of integrations, right? And so they're integrating their databases, which is...
There's a question about that. We use Open Apply for admission. So when it comes to asking questions and scheduling tours, it's all done in Open Apply. How do we use workflows in this case?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that we can do that. We actually have an integration with Open Apply. So we can actually absorb that data and have your constituents and your prospects live here, which would allow you to easily enroll them into a workflow here. And actually, you would be able to enroll them directly here from your Open Apply contacts. And not just your all contacts, but we can break them out depending on where they are. And as they move throughout that system, they move throughout our system as well. And so we can move them throughout different workflows depending on what their status is. So we do integrate with Open Apply. We also integrate with Blackbaud Enrollment Management System. And Finalsite also has beautiful school admins, new platform underneath our umbrella as well. And so there will definitely be more to come. But I think one thing to really think about going from the admissions process into the kind of engaging and retention process of those new families is that when you are integrating your SIS, whether I see some folks in here, Power School, and there's a number of SISs that folks are using here in this chat, more likely than not, we can integrate with your student information system. And what that means for you guys is that really, you don't ever have to jump those users into a workflow, because that integration will automatically add those users as a new parent constituent. All we're saying is that anybody that's added to this new parent that's a 9th grader, we are going to then trigger them to enter this workflow. And why this is so important is you might have a new family come mid-year and your registrar is going to add them via the SIS. As soon as they add them via the SIS, that flows into Finalsite and says, oh, new parent has been created, and automatically, because they're a new parent, they're dumped into this drip campaign. You haven't even had your cup of coffee yet. And now you've got your new parent that's mid-year coming in, going through the same beautiful drip campaign, new parent welcome that all your users came in the beginning of the
year. A couple of more questions, one specifically about how this interacts with school admin. And so as Ryan said, we've only come together a few weeks ago, but this is a very high priority for us. So again, our product development group is working very closely with school admin's product development group to figure out how we can come together in the best way. We have a lot of complementary functionality. And so it's really finding where the best, where should you use Finalsite, where should you use school admin, and how do we tie that together? So that's something that we are actively working on and we'll have more information about soon.
Yeah, and I think too, it's definitely because lunch is definitely, haven't had my lunch yet, and so I'm going to use an Oreo metaphor here. But I think one of the things that I like to chat with my schools to really understand, listen, the product of school admin or an open apply or a Blackbaud enrollment management system, they're admissions software databases and systems, and they're built to assist in moving those users. And we don't want to detract from that in the power of those products. There's definitely very, very important use cases for those products. And I think when talking about the Oreo, Finalsite's drip campaigns are sort of the outside pieces of the Oreo, and your admissions tool is your cream, right? And we want to use our workflow drip campaign to get those users into that admissions platform, right? We're going to vet them out. We're going to find out their interests. We're going to see if they're a right fit, and then eventually get them to fill out that full inquiry or application form that creates them as a constituent in that admissions platform, right? Then from there, you allow that admissions platform to do what it does, right? And then from there on out, they become a student, a parent, and we allow those now external cookie piece to be our workflows and drip campaign module and our email tool, if that helps to kind of paint that picture a little bit more.
One last question, and then we are out of time, Ryan. Are your clients using workflows in production at this time? When we first looked, it was still being developed and tested. If so, can you share the feedback you're hearing? Is it set up, is the setup of workflows, forms, and associated emails something that can be done in-house by schools, or is it something that we can also help with?
Awesome. I love this question. So absolutely. Workflows is full blown. As you can see here, this is my demo site. You guys now know what I do on Saturday afternoons. So it is fully live and we're rocking and rolling. It's connected with forms. It's a thing of beauty. I've enrolled all of my, both my parents and both my brothers in some of these workflows just to see how things move along. So definitely it is live and working. I've got many schools leveraging it as well. In regards to helping you set these up, we do assist our schools with their first build out of their first campaign. So we'll effectively roll out a first campaign with you, kind of walk you through and train you. This is definitely not a just turn on and leave you guys in the dark corner type of module. This definitely takes a little bit of product adoption and understanding and chatting with our team a little bit about what your goals and strategies are with the specific drip campaign. So we will definitely help you get out of the box. And whether you work with me or another awesome client success manager, you've got us, you've got our support team to always chime in and help you guys be efficient and effective with our workflows module.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. And I think we had one last slide, Ryan, to share before we sign off.
Yes, you are correct. We have one last slide. That is setup fees on workflows are waived for webinar attendees through May 1st. So if anybody is interested in looking at workflows, purchasing workflows, or just knowing more about workflows, contact your client success manager and they will set up some time to chat with you guys and absolutely waive that setup fee cost and help you guys deploy your first workflow. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day today. We will send the recording and the follow-up of the slide decks. If you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to myself. And I had a lot of fun doing this today. And Lauren, really nice to team up with you on this and tag team.
Yep. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Bye.